It's almost Halloween, and there was supposed to be an Evil Dead movie out about now, but it got bumped. But I had already planned an Evil Dead Last, so we just rolled with it. But yeah, and I've got my Evil Dead shirt on, which you can get down in the Movie Timelines store down below if you like this shirt and want it for yourself. But since there's not enough movies in that one franchise, it seemed like a good idea to put it up against some similar themed series. So with demon possession a thing here, we're looking at the Evil Dead movies versus the Night of the Demons movies versus the Demons movies. It's 10 movies in all, 4 Evil Deads, 4 Night ofs, and 2 Demons, because we're not counting that one's unofficial sequels. Sorry, church fans. As usual, I sent that list off to my patrons and they ranked them, placing their favorite at number 1, worth 1 point, second favorite at number 2, worth 2 points, and so on. And then they put their least favorite as dead last, worth 10 points here. And these are the patrons who sent in their list. And here today to help me go over the results, once again, is the host of Shindig Radio and the creator of HalloweenShindig.com. And it's Derek. And how could I not have you on for the Halloween episode?
I don't know. I mean, you could have easily. You could talk to other people with other Halloween holes. This can't be the only one.
Well, it may not be the only one, but it is the deepest.
If there's a deeper Halloween hole, I don't know that I want to see it.
Me neither, but what I do want to see is this ranking. And we had a good turnout this month with 33 lists sent in, which means that the best possible score that a film could have would be 33 points if every single person ranked the same film as number 1. And the worst score is 330 points if everyone gave the same film dead last. So let's see how it landed.
Let's do this thing. It's Halloween.
In dead last with 302 points, a movie that I kind of figured would end up here, but it was closer than I thought, is the 2009 remake of Night of the Demons. It was ranked dead last 15 times, 15 out of 33, and its best possible score was 5th place. I was one of the people who gave this one dead last, and as a dead last pick, I don't hate this one. It's not like an unwatchable movie or anything. It's just nowhere near the original and kind of generic. It takes all the beats of the original and just sort of waters them down. The demons themselves don't have the personality that the originals had, and it lacks any and all of its atmosphere. It does have some bright spots though, like the cast list is actually pretty impressive, even if it doesn't really take advantage of them. And I think it's absolutely hilarious that they just keep on talking about Edward Furlong's character as like this dreamy hunk of a man, and then he shows up and he's the one thing I'll absolutely cheer it for is the dance sequence, because in the original you have this Bauhaus tune, Angela dance, and it's perfect. And how the hell do you top that? You don't. You just don't. But I have to admit that Typo Negative is actually a pretty close second. Derek, you didn't have it in dead last, but you did have it in 9th.
I was real close. I was like this close to putting it at my dead last. So, I mean, I get it. I think ultimately, this is not a good remake. This is not a good movie. And it's kind of irritating to see and watch and experience. But it does have like a pretty fun Edward Furlong performance, which is okay. It's got a great soundtrack. Come on, that's fantastic. That's enough to make your movie not dead last, right? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, honestly, when this movie came out, I remember when this movie came out, and I don't know that I've ever been excited about a remake. And I remember watching this and being angry as it was happening. When I watched it again recently, it was a little softer, I think. Age or time or something. I thought, well, this is at least like, it's kind of fun. At least it's sort of throwaway. I think it does a job. I think it does a good job of kind of capturing what a Night of the Demons film kind of feels like. I don't know that it's not taking itself too seriously. It's got some fun gore gags and it's got some fun jokes. I know they try to do a bunch of, like callbacks to the original, and some of them work and some of them don't. But I don't know if it's dead last, but on this list, why not?
Next up is our number 9 movie, and it was a fairly close competition for the dead last spot. And with 293 points is Night of the Demons 3. It got 10 dead last votes, and the best score that it got was 6th place. Now, I had this one pretty low myself. I had it right where it landed in 9th place. And yeah, this one's a little rough, but you know what? It's still kind of fun. It's pretty indicative of that era of horror, and it's pretty clear that they just didn't have the budget to really keep it on any sort of level of the first or even the second film, and it's pretty bad. Keep in mind that this came out in 1997, and there was this whole wave of films that were trying to cash in on Pulp Fiction by having their films focus on criminals on the run, and that's in full gear here, and it's not as much fun as just kids having a party. But it's goofy and it's fun, and there's still some moments that I enjoy. And I laughed so hard at the whole snake arm gag that there was no way that I would give this dead last. You had similar feelings here, but you had it ever so slightly higher in 8th place.
Yeah, it's not a good Night of the Demons movie. Night of the Demons is one of those weird series where you got 3 movies and you can just watch it decline in quality. It's not good. I will give you that. It has that like real bad knockoff Night of the Demons theme that they play in the beginning over that weird computer animated like version of the title sequence from the original. Everything sort of seems like a weird version of something that's happening in the original movie. Speaking of the effects, they're not very good. They're not provided by Steve Johnson, and it shows. But they're not terrible effects. I mean, you can, but they all kind of turn into these weird like creatures. Like that's not they're supposed to turn into demons, like right? Not like she turns into a cat person, and like dude turns into like a Halloween mask, which is I guess kind of cool, but like it's just weird. It like kind of takes the logic of Night of the Demons and sort of plays with it in a way that I don't think is all that, you know, good. Yeah. But it's mildly entertaining. And it's from before 2000, so it has that going for it, I guess. It is post 1995 though, so it's not very good.
We'll go on now to our number 8 entry, and it was a pretty significant drop down from 293 points all the way down to 211 points with Night of the Demons 2, meaning our entire bottom 3 are Night of the Demons films. But you know, this one didn't get any dead last slots, but it did get 9th place. But it also got some pretty high scores and was ranked 3rd twice. So opinions were fairly split on this one. We weren't split though, because both of us had it in 7th place, and this is a testament to how good this list is, because I really enjoy Night of the Demons 2. I think it's a lot of fun and actually does a good job following up from the first film. As a Tremors fan, it's pretty fun to see Melvin here playing a very different character. I'm so used to seeing that kid play just horrible people that it was fun to see him against type here as a kind of wholesome character, even though he's still kind of a dick. And that nun, she basically steals the entire second half of this film, and the gag with her head getting chopped off is pretty hysterical. And I like that it builds on the first film and gives us some ties by bringing in Angela's sister. I mean, it's not great, but and I bet in other lists it would do better, but up against some of the powerhouse films in this list, it's getting 7th place, which is where you ranked it as well.
Like I said, I mean, you can watch Night of the Demons become less good with each installment, but I still think Night of the Demons 2 is pretty fun. You got Steve Johnson is still on board. Brian Trenchard Smith comes in, and I think they do a fine job of trying to do this again. Like, how do you get kids back to Hull House? How do you get, how do you set this story up? And I like the stuff at the Catholic school. You got Marsha's there. Zoe Trilling's there, and they go to Hull House for the party, and I like the guys that show up, Z-Boy, and so I like those dudes. I think there's fun Night of the Demons style banter and back and forth. Hull House still looks pretty good. It looks different, but it still looks pretty cool. And once everything kind of leaves Hull House, which is sort of disappointing that they get away from Hull House, but once they get back to the school and all hell starts breaking loose at their own lame Halloween party, it gets pretty fun. And not for nothing, that Steve Johnson Snake Angela is awesome. Like when that pops out, if you're not expecting that, you're just like, that's a hell of an effect right there. I enjoy that a lot, man. And I think the makeup and the effects are pretty good. They do another lipstick gag, which is to be expected, but I think it works. And I don't know. I think Night of the Demons 2 is real fun. Why do I have it in sixth place?
Seventh.
I had it in seventh place.
Yeah,
that's sad. I like Night of the Demons 2.
Heading down to number 7 now, and it's one that I'm sad is this low on a list. And at 199 points, we're talking about Demons 2, our first non-Night of the Demons entry. It did get one dead last ranking, but it did get one first place spot, our first movie on the list to do so. And I had this in 6th place. And again, this is one I hate having to put down so low when you consider how much I love this. Demons 2 is so much fun and such a good watch that I want to rank it higher. But when I look at what I put above it, I couldn't. This is just such a fun direction to take this after the first one, and it's wild because you see that one leaving off with this big cliffhanger, and this one just takes this whole weird tactic that was just a movie, and there's a sequel to that movie, and the characters in this movie are watching that sequel, and it's what's affecting everyone. It's just so bizarre and out there, but oh does it work. And I love that the first one gives you set pieces based on its setting, and so does this. You get these cool sequences in a high-rise elevator, the underground parking garage, the gym, and they even pull the whole Return of the Living Dead tactic of, oh, you liked that character from the first film, but he died? Well, he's just back. And he's the same character, but he's also not, and it's just great. So you also agree because you've actually popped this one in your top 3, and it's your 3rd place spot.
Damn right I had it in 3rd place. We're talking about Demons 2 here, people. Now, like I said, you're asking me, there's all the movies. Which one do you want to watch? And yeah, I want to watch Demons 2. Bobby Rhodes comes back as the physical trainer, Hank. And I love this dude so much. I think he's one of the greatest horror heroes of all time. What do you do with Demons 2, right? You guess you take the chaos of the original Demons and you try to localize it to an apartment complex, which is it's like a sequel move. It's kind of like a Fright Night sort of move, right? Where what do? You just, okay, change locations. And I think it works for Demons 2, man. This is just a fun Italian gore-soaked demon romp. I don't know what there's not to like about Demons 2. Demons 2 even gives you a ghoulie. Like, what's going on there? What's that guy's deal? Like, he just shows up, that little creature with the wings, and he's flying around the room. I love that dude. And that's awesome. And you put on the first time you put on Demons 2, if you're anything like me, this was years ago, if you're anything like me, but if you put it on, you're not expecting to see that guy. And you do, and it's great.
Next up is our number 6, and probably the one I was the most curious to see where it would end up, and with 193 points, just 6 points ahead of Demons 2, is the 2013 remake of The Evil Dead. Oddly enough, it got 5 dead lasts, and outside of Night of the Demons 3 and the remake, it was the only film to get more than 1 dead last spot, but it did get 1 first place nod, so that should tell you how split the people were on this one. We weren't that split though, although a little, I guess, because I gave this one 8th place. And look, this film's fine, but I have to say that I think it's actually gotten more love than it really deserves at this point. And here's my thing. My issue with this one is that it's just kind of bland and generic. As opposed to some remakes, I actually think that if this one wasn't a remake and was just another college kids at a cabin in the woods movie, it would have come and gone. And when you brought it up, people would say, "Oh yeah, I think I saw that one. It was all right." My other issue is the whole ending. It wants to do this whole bait and switch with, oh hey, here's your Ash character, but then, oops, nope, he's dead. The real hero of the film is Mia here, but unfortunately, she was the first character possessed, and you, as an audience member, have just spent the last 40 minutes of the movie being afraid of this person and rooting against her, but now you're suddenly supposed to just switch and be like, oh yeah, I know this character and I'm invested in her, even though she's technically absent for 2/3 of the film. Plus, you've spent all this time hyping up this big ultimate villain and this threat to the entire world, and then it's something that can't even walk, and our heroine kills it one-handed, literally. Sure, it looks cool. The movie's nice and well made, but I need more than that. And you thought even less of this one because it was your dead last.
Yeah, and again, it's sort of feel bad putting this movie in dead and last because it's a fine movie, right? But it's just not what I want to see. I don't want a horror movie to look like that. I don't want it to feel like that. But to me, it was just kind of dour and sort of boring. I know it's a remake, but I just kind of felt like I've seen this before and I've seen it done better by even something like Cabin in the Woods, right? I feel like Cabin in the Woods doing something sort of similar is more interesting to me than this Evil Dead remake, which kind of doesn't even feel like Evil Dead until, I don't know, what is that, the last 10 minutes of the movie? I don't like the whole rehab angle. I guess you got to give them something to do up there, right? But I just thought that was a little contrived, I suppose. I didn't care about this whole drug abuse situation with the sister and the brother. I don't like that there's not a tape recorder. As weird as that's going to sound. I think that's one of the coolest aspects of the original Evil Dead is they have this cool old reel-to-reel, which they play at the end of this movie. Isn't that weird? Over the credits, they play that tape from the original Evil Dead. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you just doing that? It's weird to do it at the end of the movie, particularly when you didn't do a version of it yourself. Is it the worst movie on this list? I don't think so. Objectively, I think there are worse movies on this list, but it's the last one I want to watch, and I will never watch this movie again.
Entering the upper portion of the list now, we go to our number 5 film, because with 171 points, and man, does it seem weird to have this classic of a film down at number 5, it's Night of the Demons. This one actually did get 1 dead last vote, but also got 5 first place ones. And yeah, I mentioned that it's weird to have this great of a flick at number 5, but that's where I ranked it. And this is another case of I really want this to be higher, but I cannot justify placing it above the things I have ahead of it. But this movie is one of the greats for me. It's just so awesome, and I realized that plot-wise, there may not be much to it that's groundbreaking or anything that a dozen other horror movies didn't do, but this one just really nails that atmosphere for me. It's an old spooky house that feels like a genuine haunted mansion, and there was just so much to love, but there's one big reason why I used to rewatch this flick, and that's Linnea Quigley. I mean, young Josh had a big thing for her, and she's the focal point of probably one of the best horror scenes of the 80s, and one that I guess I won't really be able to show here because it's the whole lipstick disappearing into the boob scene, which I cannot begin to explain how shocked and flabbergasted that me, and I'm going to guess about 80% of the people watching this movie at the time were. I mean, I think now we can figure that whole thing out, and I guess that's the shame of why I can't show it, because it's just plastic boobs. I'm not showing any actual jugs, but I get it, YouTube, fine. But as much as I enjoy this one, you've got me beat here, because this is your number 1.
Listen, I was led to believe that this was a Halloween show. And I'm seeing only 3 Halloween films on the list, and this is the best one of those 3, so it's first place. I love Night of the Demons. It's one of my favorite Halloween horror movies of all time. How can you not like Night of the Demons? Is it the best movie on this list? No, it is absolutely not the best movie on this list. Is it the first one I'm grabbing out of this pile? 100%. What's not to love about this movie? You got great characters interacting in a fun and festive way. You've got a fantastic theme from Dennis Michael Tenney over a fantastic credit sequence. That opening credit sequence to Night of the Demons is one of the coolest credit sequences of all time. I love them. The little demons are swirling around. The music's great. The theme is so perfectly suited to this movie. And then, Angela, Suzanne, Sal, and Stoogie show up, and I'm for it. This is just a fun Halloween hangout movie until it gets to the possessions, which then you've got all of Steve Johnson's wonderful demon effects that you're getting out of here, or even some of the other gags that they do. And then you have, especially for what I do over at Halloween Shindig, that scene perfectly encompasses what I have going on the playlist, like 100%. It is Halloween, horror, and music all wrapped up in such a perfectly executed scene. Amelia Kincaid as Angela does all the choreography for that scene. The lighting is perfect. Bauhaus's Stigmata Mater is perfect. Sal is just looking on like, what is even happening right here? It's creepy. It's sexy. It's all cream cheese over at Night of the Demons, as far as I'm concerned. I almost wore my Night of the Demons shirt, but I don't want to give it away. But it doesn't give anything away because y'all ranked at number 5.
Now, as we get closer to the top here, we're at one of the closest races. These next two films were really close, separated by a mere 3 points, and our number 4 film had a pretty solid chance of being in the top 3, and I figured if anything was going to unseat one of the Evil Dead entries, it would be this one, because at 131 points, it's Demons. It didn't get any dead last rankings, and the lowest score it got was 7th place, which it got twice, but it was also ranked in 1st place once. Once again, I had this right where it landed because I also had it in 4th. And this movie's just great. This is another one that absolutely would be first on a number of other lists. And I only have this as 4th because of what it's up against. But this has it all. It's got the atmosphere. It's got mystery. It's got gore. It's got genuinely scary monsters coming for you and a total sense of helplessness. Plus, it's giving you a location that I don't think is utilized enough in horror, a movie theater. And the weird layers that this one brings just leaves you wondering. It had me wondering so much that I'm planning a whole unanswered questions video about it, just because I kept saying, yeah, but what about this? What about that? And with everything that's happening here, then you're gonna throw a whole crashing helicopter in there and this big full-scale end of the world finale? Come on, that's awesome. The one thing that holds this one back is its decision to constantly cut back to a car full of punks just kind of driving around the city. And they have no reason to be there except to pad time. They end up not mattering to the plot at all. I mean, I guess you could say that they facilitate the demons getting out of the cinema, but the door opens on its own. It didn't need the damn punks to have this plot point. But outside of that, it's pretty much perfect. You kind of agree because this was your 2nd place spot.
Again, I tried.
Yeah, you did.
Tried to give Night of the Demons, Demons, and Demons 2 as much of a fighting chance as they could against these 3 juggernauts of horror, right? Like the idea that it wouldn't just be 1, 2, and 3 would be the Evil Deads is like, okay, of course they're gonna be. I gotta do something. Come on, man, Demons is fantastic. What more do you want from a horror movie, right? They go to a theater to watch a horror movie about demon possession. Then, because some annoying girl wanted to grab a mask that she shouldn't have been touching, they're all just going to start turning into demons, right? I love that whole thing where they're in the theater, they're watching the horror movie, and then it all starts happening to them. It's fantastic. Bobby Rhodes again hooking you up as Tony the Pimp. I don't know which version of him I like better. I don't know if I like Tony the Pimp or Hank the personal trainer? Like, which one's more of a hero? I guess Hank's more of a hero because he's not a pimp. Um, but Tony gets it done, and Tony's funnier. And speaking of soundtracks, Demons has a fantastic soundtrack. The Italians knew how to do it in the 80s. They were like, where's all that metal? Oh, it's in the middle of our horror movie. While you're on a dirt bike with a samurai sword, cutting up demons in a movie theater. Like, what more do you need? How is this movie not number 2? How is it not number 1?
Okay, top 3 time, and like I said, this was close, but coming in at number 3 with 128 points is Army of Darkness, our first Raimi Evil Dead entry to hit the list. This did get one dead last hit, and it was ranked in first 3 times, but on the whole got pretty high marks. Once again, this lands right where I had it ranked because I had this one in third. And I knew when I came up with this list, I knew that there was just no way that I wasn't putting the 3 Evil Dead movies as my top 3. It was just a matter of which one would go where, and then everything after that. But Army of Darkness was the one that there was a slight potential to not be in the top 3 because it is the most deviant from the spirit of the first 2. But after rewatching it, I realized it still had to be up there. I couldn't set this outside of that top 3. It's just insanely fun, and I dare say that it's possibly one of the most quotable movies of all time. You don't know like 1 or 2 lines from this one. You probably know half of Ash's dialogue, from "Gimme some sugar" to "Hail to the King" to "Groovy." And yes, I know that that's technically part 2, but he says it here too. The "Clatu Barata necktie," and just like any line he says. And the wild thing is that yes, this is drastically different than the first movie, and also really far from part 2. But you know what? It works. If you're watching the 3 movies in order, for some reason, it feels like this makes sense. Like, maybe it's because the second film is a bridge to the absurdity on display here, but you see it unfold and you're like, oh yeah, this is where that leads. Now, Derek, you have a little lower opinion here since you've got it in 6th.
All right, we already talked about this. I already went through the whole thing, right? I was like, I was trying to really pump up Demons and Demons 2 and Night of the Demons. Because we're talking about demonic possession movies. Is that correct? That's what this list is. And when I'm looking at this list, I see, 2 series that commit to the idea that there's demons in this picture, and another movie that kind of waffles on what we're talking about here. Now, I love Army of Darkness. Come on, who doesn't love Army of Darkness? This is especially if you like Evil Dead 2 Ash. Like, if that's what really gets you going about Evil Dead 2, then Army of Darkness is probably your jam. Like, you might like it more. Like, that might just be the movie you'd rather watch and pick up. And I'll be honest, at this point in my life, if I'm gonna put on an Evil Dead movie, it might just be Army of Darkness, because I just think it's the easiest to watch, the funnest, and the one that feels less like I've seen this, right? Like, I mean, it does kind of feel like Xena, Warrior Princess, and if you were expecting, a real like powerhouse third installment to rival that of Evil Dead 2, then you just didn't get it, and I apologize for that, because the series just kind of goes in another direction with Army of Darkness. But come on, man, Bruce Campbell is so awesome in this movie. All of his one-liners are great. His whole demeanor is fantastic. The whole movie is basically carried by just how well he plays Ash. I don't know. I love Army of Darkness. This is a fantastic movie. But I do get it. If you're really like into the horror of, horror, it's just like a weird thing to say. Then yeah, maybe Army of Darkness. You put it a little lower.
Now, when I said Evil Dead last, I kind of thought it was a given what would be the number 1 spot. I was wrong. The race for the top spot was so frenzied and so back and forth. It switched places about 7 times, and I got to the point that I had no clue what would be in the top spot. In fact, Derek was the last one to give me his ranking, and when he did, it was a tie. His ranking decided the number 1 spot, and only 1 point separated the 2. But at number 2, with 94 points, is the original classic Evil Dead. It didn't get any dead last votes, and the lowest score that it got was 9th place, which it did get once, but it was also ranked number 1 10 times. And one of those number ones was me. But let me tell you, I put this as my number 1 by like a hair, because this was like choosing between children here. And the reason I gave this one the slight edge, and I cannot emphasize enough how slight that I am talking about here, is the sheer innovation on display. I had to give the push towards the film that was made with such a low budget and yet was able to pull off some of the things that we get in this film, which only happened because Sam Raimi and crew sat down and invented new and bold ways to shoot things. With a lot of low-budget cinema, it seems like people are content to just be like, we don't have the money, so that's why you don't get cool sequences and shots. We're just limited by the money we have. But here, with this movie, you had a bunch of guys all sit back and say, that doesn't matter. We'll come up with our own ways to do these things that don't cost that amount of money. And honestly, I've never seen anything like it since. I can literally just throw this on at any time and enjoy myself and be drawn in. Also, in an era that was so enamored with having final girls and giving us slasher after slasher with women being stalked and murdered by male villains, it's crazy to watch this film in which the majority of the antagonists are females attacking the men. Alright, now I know we've kind of talked about it, but you had this in 5th place.
I kind of just imagined that Evil Dead would sort of de facto be the number 1 film here, and I think that's probably what it should be. I think it's the one of the most important, or at least influential, horror movies of the last 40 years. I mean, like, you can't look at anything that comes after Evil Dead and not see, the footprints of what Sam Raimi is doing with that original Evil Dead. There's like a whole era of Japanese horror where it's just ripping off Evil Dead. Like, that's like that was their whole bag for like years and years and years. Anytime a spirit is moving through somewhere and you're not seeing that spirit. Now, I know that other movies had done those POV shots before Evil Dead, but there is a distinct way that Sam Raimi shoots that. And that is the only way anyone shoots that now. It's very, very much a pioneer. And I don't know if it's the best. I don't know if it's the best movie on this list. I mean, it is sort of, it's amateurish, no doubt, but it's got a lot of heart. It's got a lot of spunk. It feels real creepy. It really kind of got under my skin initially when I was younger. And I think the effects work is crude, but it works. I like the stop motion stuff. The melting the heads. I mean, you look at it now and it looks weird and dated, but I want horror movies to look weird and dated. I don't know why. What did I put it in 5th place. It's insane. I shouldn't have put it in 5th place. This is a number 1 pick all day long. Everybody who put this at number 1, you were right to do that. You should have done that. But when you get right down to it, I'm picking stuff to watch here, and I'm definitely picking those other 4 movies to watch before Evil Dead, as I've seen Evil Dead.
Here we go, the big one now, our number 1 film. A straight up legend that took the top spot here, and probably would have taken the top spot last month too if we had it in the horror comedy list. But I left it out of that because I knew it would be in this one here. And at 93 points, just 1 point ahead, is Evil Dead 2. Its lowest score was 7th place, which it got 3 times, and it took the 1st place spot 12 times. And this is one of those rare times that neither one of us talking had the number 1 movie in the top spot, because Derek, you had this in 4th.
Dude, if I'm breaking ties with a 4 and a 5, what's going on? Like, this is kind of math is this? It doesn't make any sense. This, when you first told me, when you first sent me the list for this, that was like the shoo-in, right? I was like, there's no chance that Evil Dead 2 doesn't win this whole thing. And I thought by a long shot, I thought it was going to clean house and just clear out the regular Evil Dead, because this is a beloved horror movie for a lot of people. For a lot of people, it was the one that got them going. It was certainly the movie that got me interested in effects and behind the scenes stuff. I remember watching a lot of that before K&B was even K&B, and they're showing you all the behind the scenes of making Henrietta and Ted Raimi's and all these suits, and you see all the, it just looked like a fun movie to make, right? And that behind the scenes stuff was just like, man, I was like, that's so cool. There's just guys that just get to hang out and do that. I know that it's not that cool now to do that, but yeah, man, come on. This is the Evil Dead 2 is such an enjoyable, fun, but not too silly. And I know a lot of people don't really cotton to horror comedy all that much. I know Mikey absolutely despises when people enjoy Evil Dead 2 more than Evil Dead. He just wants Evil Dead. And he wants that serious kind of slice of it, which is why I think he likes the Evil Dead remake more than all of them. That is Mikey Rotella's favorite Evil Dead movie. I want to go on record that the whole internet knows that that's his favorite Evil Dead movie, because it's the most serious of them all. So it has to be, right, Mikey?
Yeah, I remember that. There was that one time I was sitting there with Mikey, and he was just like totally out of nowhere. It was just like, I love the Evil Dead remake so much that I don't even want to watch the other ones anymore. But please don't let anyone know.
Oh yeah, he's not telling anybody that.
Don't tell anybody.
Yeah. That's his favorite Evil Dead movie.
Not
I'm as shocked as you, really.
Well, the remake's not my favorite Evil Dead, but I guess neither is this, since I had this in second. But again, I put it there in the tiniest of margins, to the point that I'm not mad that it's number one in the slightest. It straight up deserves it. If either the original Evil Dead or this one got the top spot, I was happy. So I am happy. And how awesome is this movie? It's just straight up balls to the wall fun. And yeah, it's comedy. It's this perfect blend of comedy and horror, and mixes the two things together so well that even though it's probably one of the bloodiest, goriest films of that era, and possibly even to this day, but you don't even notice that because it just sort of feels like a Three Stooges skit turned up to 11. And it's not gross because it's just so over the top it can't be. It's like that whole notion that something that goes on too long isn't funny anymore unless it goes on for even longer and then it's hilarious. This is kind of like that. Plus, by the time that you get to the ending of this film, you realize that you're not even watching a horror movie. You're watching a superhero origin story. And you get Ash, as we know Ash, with the chainsaw hand, shotgun, and one-liners. I mean, let's face it, I don't think that there's a more iconic horror movie hero. There's others, to be sure, but none are as instantly recognizable as Ash. He's on par with like a Freddy or a Jason, but just on the other side of the coin. And you're not getting that Ash in the first movie. You're getting him here. And what's wild is that you're watching a movie and loving it, and you're never really clear if you're watching a sequel or a remake or what. Because of the whole rights issues, they had to sort of redo that opening, so it's basically a fresh start. But I love that you can kind of hand wave that a bit and just have this pick up right where the first one leaves off as well. And it's number one because it's just so unique. Lots of other people have tried. They've tried to give us an experience like this, but no one's coming close to giving us an experience that's just this groovy. So there you have it, 3 franchises, 10 movies, all ranked up, and let's take a look at this ranking and see where everything landed. And I'm okay with this, I guess. I realize that other people like the Evil Dead remake more than me, and I suppose I don't have to like it, and I have to say I really thought that if anything out there could unseat one of the trilogy, it would be either the original Night of the Demons or Demons, and I guess they came close, but no cigar. So let us know where you would rank these. What's your top pick, and what's your dead last? Do you think that the Evil Dead remake deserves to be as high as it is, or do you think something else should have topped one of the Evil Deads for that top space? Tell us in the comments below. Also, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And I want to thank my patrons, both those who sent in their rankings and those who just help contribute to keeping us going here. It's very, very appreciated. Also, of course, I want to thank my special guest, Derek, for coming on board for this special Halloween episode.
Yes. Happy Halloween. Where's the button? Jeez, I shut it off because it wouldn't shut up. Happy Halloween, everybody in Movie Timeline's Dead Last Land. Go watch all these movies. Go watch them all. It's Halloween. All right, shut up.
Well, we were glad to have you on. I hope that you'll all go to HalloweenShindig.com to play some spooky tunes and check out Shindig Radio on Spotify or anywhere you get your podcasts. And we'll see you soon for another great episode. Thanks, guys, and bye-bye.